What's up, guys? Welcome back to HARDCOURT. Obviously, I have a new guest. This is Mark Sansait, the legendary YouTuber who has, what are we at?
17K plus. Yeah.
17. I love getting people on the channel that are in the same field as me, whether we have overlapping fields or exactly the same thing, just so you guys can have different opinions other than just me as a tennis coach. So, Mark, just for the people who aren't following you yet, just let us know a little bit about everything.
My relationship with tennis or my YouTube tennis relationship?
Let's go relationship with tennis first, and then we can build from there,
I started when I was around 8. I actually had a national ranking at 10 and 12 and under, and I kind of fell off, and it was a mental thing. So I just went through the motions from middle school through high school. Ended up playing 2 years at University of Wisconsin-Whitewater, which is a nationally ranked Division III men's and women's tennis program. I made the first 2 years, my freshman and sophomore year, and then I got cut my junior year because they had some really strong recruits coming in. And I still had a good relationship with not only the coach, but everybody else on the team. So I ended up being basically a hitting partner under the guise of an volunteer assistant tennis coach there. But I'm glad that happened because now I can enjoy tennis from when I was 22 outside of college all the way up until now, and I'm 33. So I think my game has improved dramatically ever since I left college. Most of it is mental, and it's also just the enjoyment and the relatively stress-free of not playing for a college tennis team. I'm playing for myself now, and just for my enjoyment.
Now, with Division III, I know there's no money in it. So was that actually like less stressful when you actually got, like when they brought the new team in? Because like when I played Division I and Division II, that's like always a worry for us because we're always like, my money is based on me like making the team.
Yep.
So is it like when you heard that the new players were coming, were you like stressed out about it, or were you just like, however it goes?
It's probably more of the latter, more of the how it goes. For me, like I was never really 10, even though I had a national ranking at like 10 or 12, just because I was quick. I knew how to hit tops and I had a big forehand back then. I knew that I was never going to be anywhere near a professional tennis player because of the talent level. That I just didn't have that. So for me, college was all about school. Tennis just happens to be on the side. So yeah, I was kind of sad that I got cut when I saw the incoming junior roster. D1 transfers, D2 transfers, or like top quality state high school boys coming into Whitewater as freshmen. But it was it is. Did I wish I made the team? Yeah, but I personally believe things happen for a reason, and I'm happy it worked out that way.
So did you just stayed on as a hitting partner until you graduated?
Yep, my junior, senior year. Yep.
Nice. So fast forward, we're out of college now. How do you get back into, I'm assuming you never really stopped,
Correct.
But how do you get back into it to the degree that you've gotten into it now?
I got pretty lucky because Whitewater, Wisconsin is in south central Wisconsin. So when I moved to the Milwaukee area, which is where I reside now, it was only about a 45 or 50-minute drive. So the connections I had made at Whitewater that were tennis related, I actually did play on the club team my junior and senior year, and they had a pretty decent club team. A lot of them ended up moving back to Milwaukee or ended up moving to Milwaukee. So I had like 4 or 5 connections in the Milwaukee area right when I graduated that were tennis related. It just kind of spread from there. So I was hitting with some juniors and seniors in high school. I was hitting with some local college kids from smaller Division III schools like Wisconsin Lutheran College, Carroll University, MSOE, and Concordia University in Wisconsin. So I already had a pretty good network to begin with, to just kind of spread out and say, oh, he's a good 4 or 5 level male tennis player that's, graduated and just wants to keep playing tennis. So in my opinion, the key is never stop playing.
Yeah. I have a lot of people that I coach that they were super competitive early on, and then they put it down because they got a new job or they have a family, and then they're like, I want to get back into it. And I'm like, it's so much tougher. Because you lose all your connections. You don't know who's still playing and who's not. You don't know how well you can play or where you fit in anymore. And then that kind of stuff always stems from them just like deciding it's only going to be a few weeks or a few months, and then I'll get back into it.
And then it just keeps being delayed. I got lucky because I grew up in the northwest suburbs of Chicago. So when I moved to, it's called Waukesha, Wisconsin, just west of Milwaukee, I started off as a bank teller making like $11 an hour, which was like obviously very eye-opening, and it was a tough job and didn't pay very well. So to supplement my income and my rent and my savings account and my retirement, I had to basically string at a local tennis club. And on top of that, I got free gym membership, free court time, free tennis membership. And I was also able to make connections there and then. So if I wasn't working at my bank telling job, I was either stringing tennis rackets, working out, or actually playing tennis because I needed something to do.
Strategic placement.
Yeah, I didn't mean for it to be that way, but I'm happy that it happened like that.
Yeah.
Just because it kept myself busy and I kept out of trouble.
We offer that at my facility where like anybody who's on staff can, if there's nobody that's already booked out the court, then you can use the ball machine or go out and bring a hitting partner or stuff or things like that.
It's one of those things too. I don't own my own tennis club, not yet. But if I were to do it, I think I would employ 75% part-time people that know how to play tennis, are articulate, know how to instruct, have a personality, and just pay them, lower than market value, but have them have all the accessibility on court time, the gym, assuming that it's not booked right now. Yeah. Just because I want passionate tennis players to be at the place I'm at.
That's actually how I feel about running my facility. Like, I'm not fully in charge. I'm the director, but we have obviously a general manager and things of that nature. The one thing I always have told them is we need to get a staff that plays or has played full time at some point. And most of those people hopefully will have like come through our program, because then we don't have to train people on how the program functions. We don't have to train people or tell people, hey, don't forget we have the bubble over here, we have the clay courts over here. But we hire people that we inevitably have to like keep reminding them of things that they have to say. And the ones that we hired that came through the program are far and away ahead of the ones that didn't come through the building.
And part of it too, I think, is just being part of the local community. Like not necessarily just tennis, but like being a well-rounded citizen that the face. Like, oh, I know John Smith. Oh, he might be not an investment banker. He's a financial analyst, but he also, when at his free time, he's at the Hillcrest tennis club. So it's always a good connection to the local community.
Oh yeah, easily. And then for us, like all of our junior staff that's on staff, like they are so good at answering just like, what racket should I use or what string? What's the difference between this and this? That way, I don't have to come off the court to address a question that I feel like other people should be able to handle.
Oh yeah, delegation, because your time is more important because you've done your work.
Yeah,
your time is worth more elsewhere rather than answering questions like that.
Yeah, so having the right staff would definitely play a big part, because I actually want to own my own facility in the near future, and just having talked to a bunch of coaches, directors, owners, having traveled to different places, I've seen the things that work and the things that don't work. And all at that point is just, where do you want to set up shop, and then just try to do it the best way.
The location is definitely the toughest part. And obviously, how long have you been here for?
Damn, almost 8 years, if not over.
Yeah, that's a long time. So you're already kind of biased of like, okay, you already know this area, but you don't know, maybe there's something in Virginia, West Virginia, other parts of Pennsylvania where it might be better, but you're probably biased and like, oh, I want to buy this land because it's already here. I already know the area, and you don't have to relocate too far. But when it comes to running your own tennis club, I'm a business guy by trade. If you want to know what to do when running any type of business, specifically a tennis club, you first have to start off thinking, okay, what don't I do?
Yes.
You got to eliminate those things first,
and
then understand there are things that you don't know. But at this point, given you've been here for 8 years and you've been through the tennis circuit for quite a bit, I would argue, more than half your life you've been playing tennis? Way more, right?
Actually, the podcast I did with Dylan, I let people know something that's pretty surprising. I didn't start playing until the summer before my senior year of high school.
Were you just a freak athlete?
Don't tell nobody.
Okay.
Yes. It wasn't the first sport that I played. It was the last sport that I played.
Okay.
So I played basketball, soccer, football. I had been athletically inclined, and then I found a sport that suited my personality. So
more individualistic.
Exactly.
So the football, the strength was already there. The soccer, your footwork was already there. Basketball, your hand-eye coordination, was that? Is that mainly it?
And that was the one I like. Just growing up, all of our friends just go play. So all that stuff was there, and then ended up playing number one for my high school, literally just by watching pro tennis on TV and hitting against the wall.
How's your technique?
My technique was, back then, I would laugh at myself if I looked at myself now, but back then I was actually pretty good. Like I was probably serving like 80, 90 miles an hour just because of just good, solid shoulder mechanics and all that.
Were you able to hit topspin? Okay.
I had,
because that's the hardest part, teaching like junior high schoolers.
Yeah,
you got to brush up on the ball.
I was completely self-taught. I didn't have my first real coach till after I got recruited for college.
Okay.
I got recruited for college, and then I linked up with a coach who was a coach at a tennis academy, and I just trained really hard over that summer. And I've said this before, I was on a work roster at school, so I got done school every day at noon.
So it was 8 a.m. class.
Yep. So from 8 to noon, and then I was done every day. High school, done noon for the rest of the day.
Okay.
So from 1 o'clock until, depending if I was working or not, from 1 o'clock till 7 or from 1 o'clock till 10, I was at the public courts or hitting against a wall or something tennis related. So I realized I had to make that commitment and that big jump to catch up to people like you who had been doing stuff for like their whole life.
So you've been around the tennis court since 17, 18, and then you really bumped it 18 plus.
Yeah.
So you already know what you don't know, and that's very little. I think that I would argue you know 90% of what it's like to actually run a tennis club at like not just a director level, but a GM or maybe even ownership level. So yeah, hopefully that comes pretty soon. Let me know.
Yeah, I've been around, like, even the academy setting. I learned how the difference between how that runs and how just your private owned club versus your publicly owned rec club works, because I've been in all those different environments. So it was eye opening to see how certain things are handled depending on what the environment is, like board of directors versus general owner, all of those things that matter.
So out of the 3 types of tennis clubs you just mentioned, academy, privately owned, or public/rec, which one do you think you would have the most fun owning? Not in terms of money, but like what you can do.
I would say I would have the most fun privately owned, because you can choose the standard that you want. You can choose where your facility is going to fit in.
Yep.
Like if you run an academy, academies come with expectations. Even if you can provide them, they come with an expectation. If you run a rec program, you have a board that says what your responsibilities are. The board or the community, they say this is now for low-income families. This is now for high-income families.
So you're reporting to someone.
You're reporting to somebody. That private ownership one, even though it comes with more risk, that's the one that you can control enough to make everybody happy, or make the people happy that you want to accommodate.
Yeah, you're never going to make anybody happy. Or you're never going to make everybody happy.
Yes.
That's one thing that leads to failure as an adult, because you can't please everybody, unfortunately. Speaking of academies, have you ever traveled like outside the US for these academy stuff?
I have not traveled outside the US, but I heard you have.
Yeah. I went to the Nadal Academy in Mallorca, in Spain, and it was mind-blowing. Like, that is academy. And just like, I believe they had 16 or 17 outdoor clay courts, 6 indoor semi-covered clay courts, and then like maybe 10 outdoor hard courts and like 4 indoor hard courts. But just the idea of traveling to a different country and just seeing the Nadal Academy in person was absolutely overwhelming. So I suggest that before you make a decision like that, of like, if you were to, get the right funding, connect with the right people, go outside the US and just travel to these different tennis clubs, because it was probably my favorite vacation so far. Yeah, it was so fun.
I've done virtual tours with people that I know that are on staff at those different places.
Yeah.
So like, I have friends that train at academies in like Germany and South America.
Yeah.
The closest that I would say to what I've been told by them is the national campus, because
that's almost like an academy, isn't it?
Yeah. It is an academy because they function like that, but because it's also USTA based, they allow other things to happen there.
So it is a mix of both. It's probably 75% academy, and then maybe 25%, maybe even rec.
Because like you can go book the courts, but for example, they have a building that's just like probably like 100 yards away. That's the player development center, and you have to have credentials to walk in that building.
That's secretive, huh?
Yep. So like, there's been times like where they've had just seminars with top level coaches that are there, or they've been like, Madison Keys is training there. She's not training on the normal courts where people can just watch her play. She's over in the player development area. So they function both in both ways. Like the 5-0 championships happen over there. So like, they have USTA events because it is a USTA sanctioned thing. They have all those things kind of finish in their championships over in that area, but you can also just be the mom of the kid who plays and book a court.
How many outdoor courts do they have? It has to be like 50 plus, right?
It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot. And it's also hard courts, clay courts, hard courts. They have all of them. The only one that they don't have is grass courts for my
That doesn't surprise me. It's
but
grass.
they have indoor courts, they have hard courts, they have clay courts, and they even have, I believe, I don't know if they converted them to pickleball courts when we were there.
I think they did install
did.
pickleball courts from what I heard. And that might have been last year, a year and a half ago, which is, taking it back, pickleball is a sport. I just like to rip on it on my channel. Like, good. I want people to keep moving. I want them to be active. I just don't like it when it starts to boot off tennis courts.
That's my feeling.
That's when I get like a little bit triggered.
my feeling on pickleball is I do not care about pickleball. I care about how pickleballing affects tennis. Like, it's its own standalone thing. The problem is you don't lose basketball courts for football fields.
Correct.
You lose tennis courts for pickleball courts.
It's a convenience thing. It's like, oh, it's the same surface but different lines. Let's just slap it on.
Exactly.
Have you played?
I played once for about 10 minutes while they were waiting for their fourth person, and then I have not picked up a paddle since. I wasn't bad.
Isn't it easy?
It wasn't bad, but like that's part of my gripe with it is it's too easy to be good, and then there's so many rules that make it that you don't have the ability to progress beyond a certain point. Like that kitchen line changes like, why do you need to be fast? You only have to get to here and then stop. Like when you play tennis, it's effectively approaching the net so that you can finish a point. But now you're getting up there just to all be there at the same time.
I can't believe I'm saying this. I'm going to defend pickleball a little bit. But you could also say the same thing about not crossing the line on the baseline before you make contact on the serve. It's a little bit different, but it's kind of the same concept. But keep in mind, I mean, pickleball was made to keep people that were significantly senior citizens to just keep them moving.
And I love that aspect of it.
Good.
I like pickleball for two reasons. That's one, and it does a better job than tennis at creating a social environment because the barrier of entry is so low for success. You can go out there, have no experience, and be successful within 5 to 10 minutes if you're moderately coordinated.
And I think too, like that for people like us and a certain YouTuber that will be playing relatively soon, we're gifted in the sense that we are not only decent tennis players, we're very good tennis players. And tennis, as you know, requires a lot of mental discipline, a lot of footwork, a lot of hand-eye coordination, a lot of breathing control that people don't necessarily think about. To where if you take a high-level 4.0 male singles player from tennis, they could be a semi-pro pickleball player in 2 months. I think if they really dedicated themselves.
Oh yeah.
So that just is a testament to how difficult tennis as a sport, specifically singles, really is.
But that's what's frustrating when people sell me pickleball, and I'm like, I could probably beat all of you in a day of practice. Not saying that I'm a great pickleball player. What I'm saying is the barrier of success and the way the rules are set makes it so you only have to really adjust your skills. You don't have to really learn new skills.
Correct.
because it's a racket sport, and if you have the proper hand skills,
paddle sport.
It is a
technically
paddle sport. But because of the way it's geared and the things that it sets up in the rules themselves, like what was it? Jack Sock and Isner like destroyed the #1 women's doubles team.
Well, I mean that's different,
right? But I'm just saying, like for people to be top level professionals in anything, you shouldn't be beaten easily
by someone that played a different sport.
Right.
Yep.
So like for me, I've been hitting partners with like professional men and professional women. And the professional women that I've played with were dangerously good. And me at my skill level, I still had to like work hella hard to be able to keep up with them or give them a solid workout depending on who it was.
Yep.
And I feel like if I was to go to a pickleball court and play a top professional athlete at that, I wouldn't feel that same pressure of ball pull. I wouldn't feel the same pressure of movement. And I feel like I'd be able to keep up with most top professional players. Even if they beat me, I wouldn't feel like I don't belong.
Correct. And honestly, given your skill set and given your build, I honestly think if you just played pickleball 2 hours a day for a month, you can be like a 5.0, 5.5. But I think tennis is a little bit more passionate for you, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. So like again, I don't have an issue with pickleball. I have an issue with tennis players in pickleball because you're losing tennis players to pickleball. You're losing tennis courts to pickleball. And for the older people who are trying to do stuff to save their joints and all that stuff, makes perfect sense to me. For the people, but my issue is the ones that are like, I'm no longer doing this, I'm doing this instead. That bothers me as a tennis provider.
Yep. And to an extent, me too. And I mean, you've never heard of a pickleball player picking up tennis. That has never happened. But you always see these older tennis players who are, 4.0 or higher picking up pickleball pretty easily. Yeah. But I think pickleball does have its own space in, I almost said the Midwest. I'm not in the Midwest anymore. In the States.
Yes.
And it's good, but I don't think it will ever take the space of competitive tennis.
I agree.
For 95% of people between the ages of 14 and 40.
I agree.
So pickleball, and you said you've hit with professional women tennis players.
Yeah,
right?
Professional women and men, and it was an illuminating experience. But again, for me, I think it was just having good timing as well, because somebody with my pedigree usually doesn't get that opportunity. Somebody who started playing when they were 17.
And these guys have been playing since they were 5, I'm assuming.
Exactly. So yeah, I've gotten the opportunity to play with a couple of them. When I got recruited the second time, my coach was a former training partner of Dustin Brown. So,
is he German, your coach?
No, my coach is Jamaican, but so is Dustin Brown.
Yeah,
his family shifted
to Germany.
So connections through my coach, I got to meet them. Then a couple of my teammates when I was in New York were futures players and traveling.
Those are the top guys, though, right? On your team.
Yeah. But because of that, I got to meet other top players and practice with them from time to time. So I had this ability to kind of just be in the right place right time. I actually hit with Andy Murray one time because his hitting partner didn't show up.
Was this in the US Open?
No, it was down in Florida. I can't remember what he was there for, but my team was there to play. Yeah. And his partner was I don't know if he was just stuck in traffic or what happened, but I just ended up being the guy.
Apparently he's a really nice guy off court. I mean, on the camera, he does get a little bit pouty, he gets a little bit angry, but that's because he's super competitive.
Yes.
But from the interactions I've seen him in person, he's very accommodating towards fans. He's super nice. He's very humble. He's got a dry British humor and personality, kind of like the British Office. So whatever you see on camera for Andy Murray, I suggest you give him a second chance, assuming he doesn't retire when this gets released. That's true. Because he's a very, very nice guy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I mean...
How heavy was the ball?
It was big.
Yeah.
The drills that we did were very skewed towards making life difficult for him. Yeah. And I had a hard enough time just keeping up with, we did a 2 to his backhand, 1 to his forehand drill.
Yep.
So, and I use this drill all the time with my kids now, but basically I had to hit from the ad side, I had to hit 2 balls to the backhand side and then go down the line. And 2 balls to the backhand and then go down the line. So
and he would always only go cross court.
He could only go cross court. And I'm hitting cross court backhands, inside out forehands. Inside in forehands, and I'm ripping, and then he's just
So was his, and this is my argument, I personally think Andy Murray's backhand is heavier in pace than his forehand. Do you think that's true?
From my experience, yes.
Okay.
His forehand was more neutralizing. It seemed like when he tried to hit it hard, it didn't come off as hard as you expected. But when he went for a backhand, it stuck to your racket, dramatic anime level. You feel like you're
tennis.
You feel like you're holding it here and it won't leave for a second. It felt like that
because if I recall, he might have had the heaviest racket on tour, at least at the time of 5 or 6 years ago, because it's like a 13-ounce racket. He's also a big dude.
He's not small.
People do not realize how big he is.
He is not a small guy.
If you think Nadal is big, Murray is like Murray doesn't have as much muscle, but his bone structure, it's like insane.
Yes. The one guy that I wish I had seen in person, and hopefully at some point I get to play with him, even though he's retired now, is Tsonga. Because Tsonga's a tank. But he's actually, funny story, he's actually the second reason that I play tennis.
Was it because of the semi-final Australian Open when he beat Nadal?
No, it was right before that when he won his first Masters. When he took out like James Blake, Nalbandian. He won
Miami.
He won. It was Bercy. It was in Paris.
Bercy. Okay.
Yeah, he won that one, and for me, because again, I didn't have the upbringing of like tennis being a thing.
Yeah.
All I saw was a guy on screen that looked like me, whooping everybody's ass. And that was like my first tournament that I had watched. And I was
in person or
no on TV.
On TV.
On TV. That was my first tournament that I had watched, and I just saw this guy who looked similar to me, just cooking people in an athletic way because he wasn't your standard play style.
He doesn't have good form. I would never teach that form to any of my juniors. It's Eastern forehand grip, very flat, hits it almost behind him.
Mm-hmm. Very, very elbow dominance here, but I didn't know any of that stuff at the time. And I was just I was just impressed to see somebody that physically dominant, and that was when they were calling him like the Muhammad Ali of tennis. So it was just like it was a good story for me as like a 17-year-old kid to like latch onto watching. And then he turns around and makes it. And at that point, I didn't even know how big of a deal it was, but he turns around and he makes the final of the Australian Open. And I didn't know how big of a deal that was at that point.
Was that 2008? It was 7 or 8. Okay, so it was 8. So background for Jo-Wilfried Tsonga apparently is that he was a very, very talented junior, but he just was injury prone like crazy, probably because of his form. Yeah,
his form, and I mean later in his career, he just carried a lot. He kind of like Jack Sock got big and then small and then big and small. Like he was fighting to like keep the framing.
He's a big dude.
Yeah.
Not necessarily super tall, but just a big dude. So he had injuries. That's why he never had ATP points to anywhere near his talent level. Yeah. But that year when he made his run to the final, he beat Andy Murray in the first round in like 4 or 5 sets, and then just went on a freaking just rampage all the way to the finals.
And the way he beat Rafa that year was humble.
Serve and volley, just react.
Drop shots that were like this close. To, I watched that replay at least once a year just because of like it's so illuminating when I try and show my kids certain things.
That's one of the only 2 times I've ever seen Nadal like actually mad. Nadal was just like, I don't know what to do. Like he was just Nadal, obviously very humbling guy, probably the best work ethic on tour I've ever seen.
I wouldn't doubt that.
And he was just like mad, just because Tsonga was coming in on approach shots that he probably shouldn't have. Nadal was hitting what looked like winners, and Tsonga was just hitting drop shots, as he said, like this far from the net, and just like. Not even clean drop shots. It's just
what I will say is, and I can't believe I'm saying it now, but he went way downhill as soon as he switched to Babolat.
Did he really switch to Babolat? I don't know the actual technical.
He was on Wilson when he was on his tear.
Yeah.
Because he played with the Blade 93.
Yeah, K-Blade.
Ooh. Yeah, that was like the best.
Sexy.
Yeah, that was the best.
Racket.
So he was unstoppable. Then he went to Babolat and he changed rackets a lot. And then eventually he ended on the Aero Pro. But like as soon as he went Babolat, it was just like it didn't suit his game, or he just couldn't string his play style into it the way he was with Wilson.
Assuming that it actually was Babolat and actually was a Wilson, he doesn't need more power. Why would you need a Babolat?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And now look at me using the Pure Strike.
Well, that's not really, in my opinion, that's not really a Babolat racket.
This is, in my opinion, one of like only 2 or 3 Babolat rackets that I feel like are not one-dimensional.
My favorite Babolat racket, probably top 5 rackets of all time, was the Pure Storm Tour GT. Yes. Like the 2008, 2009.
The Aero Storm was the one that I really liked. That was when they had the V Core, and it looked like the Aero Pro, but it was red, and
that's the generation after.
It was a 95 too. Yeah. So like because what I've always felt like with Babolat is everybody that I've ever played, because this isn't even about the racket, but everybody that I've ever played, whatever racket they walked on court with a Babolat, I could tell how that match was going to go in terms of what I was going to have to deal with.
Heavy topspin.
Every Aero Pro person was trying to roll the crap out of the ball, heavy balls, and every Pure Drive person was trying to slap the crap out of it. And only when I would play somebody that had a Storm or a Strike was it like a versatile game.
They could hit a backhand. They could hit a slice.
Exactly. It was a versatile game. So I've always felt like people who used Babolats early became one-dimensional. It was like you had to fit the profile of what the racket needed.
Well, it's because with the Storm, the Arrows, or Aero Pure, Aero Pro Drive, whatever you want to call it, or the Babolat Pure Drive, they hit the ball for you, basically.
Yes.
You're not, like, back in the day, one of my friends, Dean, who doesn't play tennis anymore, but this kid grew up in middle school with a K-factor 90. But he had to learn how to hit the ball with his body.
Yes.
He had to learn how to position himself to hit the sweet spot. With not this one, but with a Pure Drive or an Aero Pro or
sweet
one
spot
of the
is bigger than the racket.
Yeah, and you can just get away with anything. So it's just learning how to hit with your body instead of letting the racket do most of the work.
Funny story. In college, just to kind of illustrate that, me and my teammates had a big serve contest. And I was using the Head Speed Pro. It was the white, really thin beam one. It was
almost all white, right?
Yes.
Except for a little bit of black.
It was the year that I think it was the year that Novak went to the Australian.
It was very circular, wasn't it?
Yes.
They should bring that back.
I really like that racket.
Yeah.
But again, not a power racket by any means.
Nope. It's a hefty racket, though.
Yes. We had a big serve contest. I came in second at 132.
Ad side or do side?
It was ad side.
Of course, you're righty. Yep.
Yeah. So I came in second at 132. My teammate got 137. He won.
What was he using?
Pure Drive. Now, we had it was like a $5 bet between everybody on the team.
Technically not legal because NCAA, but
so we give him his like $70 because he won out of everybody. And then I was like, all right, you won. Let me see you do that with my racket. And he tried. He could not get over 100.
Really?
Couldn't get over 100 with my racket. I took his racket. I was at like 120, and then I got back up to my number within like 5 tries.
Yeah, because he has to get used to it.
Mm-hmm. He could not break 100 with the Head Speed Pro.
Was it modified at all?
No. It was standard issue, but it was just to illustrate. Like he had a racket that had given him so much power that he didn't know how to do it.
Yeah.
It was like I didn't expect it to be that much of a drop off, but he could not break 100.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah, but again, like I feel like people who just use those rackets either learn to have a racket that compensates for them, or they try to develop a game style that everybody else that uses that racket has.
Speaking of stereotypes in terms of equipment, so many juniors, by juniors I mean like high schoolers and even a lot of college kids, Hyper-G. Everybody's using Hyper-G. It's a good string, but it's not a perfect string.
I've like Torbite. I feel like it's better than Hyper-G.
That's what I'm using right now.
Yeah.
Back then, when I was, this is way when I first started my YouTube channel. I think my first string review was the Hyper-G, and then I think my third string review was a Torbite. I was using the Wilson Blade V7 18x20. Really good racket, by the way, especially for control. And I was stringing at 55 pounds back in the day. The Slinko Hyper-G was not giving me any elbow issues or arm issues, but the Torbite was. Now that I use a Yonex E-Zone DR98, found some on eBay, love that racket.
I noticed you switched.
Yeah, the Slinko Torbite's fantastic. I can hit as hard as I want, and it's still going to go in. And I can even flatten it out, and it still feels fine.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Now, for me, it was, you know what, there was another string that everybody bandwagoned at first. When RPM was first coming out, everybody was on it.
For me, I'm glad I never got on the train because I couldn't afford it at the time.
I used it probably for like a month, and then I was just like,
it doesn't.
I can find something that feels the same.
It doesn't feel like it's 8-sided. It feels more round. And any string that's 8-sided, in my head, that's a round shape.
Yes,
because it's 6 is where the 6-sided. That's where like you could start to feel a difference.
There was one string that I used that I cannot find anymore, and I think the brand is still there, but the string itself isn't. Signum Pro made a pyramid shaped string. It was just a triangle. So you had 2 flat sides and a point on the other side. and that thing bit like crazy.
The only Signum Pro that I know that's still available is the Polyplaza, which is a pretty good string. It's the orange one. I did hear about that pyramid string, but I've never gotten my hands on it.
It was amazing. Literally, when you would string, it was a little uncomfortable to string because sometimes it would spiral.
Yeah.
But when you laid it down perfectly, you'd have two flat sides sitting and just 1 point out. And kick serves were ridiculous. I'm getting kick serves that jumped 2 courts over. It was so nasty.
So how bad was it to flatten out on an approach shot?
I was always just a naturally heavy hitter, so I never really had that issue. But when I would try to flatten out, I didn't really have much problem. It would still dip like a normal ball.
Okay, that's the issue I have with very much shaped polys, is that it's hard to flatten out. Because I personally think it's just made for topspin with the launch angle and how it bites onto the ball.
Yeah.
My rule of thumb is if you hit a flatter ball or if you hit a lot of approach shots, the rounder strings are the way to go to.
Yes. So
what is that right now?
This is RPM Power, if I'm not mistaken.
That's a newer one.
Yeah. If it's really weird to it feels great, really weird to string with because it's textured, but not sided. So when you string it, it's round, but when you are weaving it through, because of that texture, it actually has like a violin sound. So when people sound when they're tuning an instrument, it sounds like that when you're pulling it through.
Looks like gold.
I know.
Pulling it up.
It feels really good. It took a little bit of getting used to. I actually switched to this racket on a whim because I knew I was done with my V-Core, because I was using, when I played Dill,
95, right?
Yeah, when I played Dill, I was using the V-Core 95, and it was a combination of 2 issues. I was using a new string called Hawk Power, and
is that a poly or multi?
Poly.
Okay.
And for whatever reason, it's the most unforgiving string. And when I say unforgiving, I don't mean arm unforgiving. I mean, if you don't hit it clean, it breaks. Not it twists in your hand.
The string would break.
It broke a couple of times when I was stringing it. It was so unforgiving.
That's weird.
Yep. I strung it. I had a couple of my friends string it just to see if they ran the same issue. It would pop. And I would always pop my string on one of the top corners or one of the bottom corners because of one miss hit. One time I was teaching a girl, and it was a warm-up, our service box warm-up. I broke my string on the service box warm-up. But that actually isn't why I switched from the Yana, because that was the issue with the string itself. But what I noticed was, because of me having a teaching job and then trying to play as well, the 95 did not lend itself to not hitting perfectly. So being that I'm teaching an older lady and then a green ball and then a performance kid,
it's a different timing.
And anything that didn't hit perfectly just didn't feel good. And I felt like I needed a racket that gave me a little bit more forgiveness for being a little off center, switching from one student to another.
You could try a pure drive.
Stop it. Now I got enough flack for switching to a Babylon.
That's not really a bad one. Especially the tour version.
Yeah, I was very specific on which one I needed to use, but
kind of excited to see the new version of the Pure Strikes. It should be coming out next year, I believe.
Yeah. So I went to the store, took out a couple of demos, and then a friend of mine who works at the store, he was like, "Try this one too," and I was like, I guess. And
that was the one.
That was the one that I ended up liking. I tried the new Percept a day after it came out.
I got to demo that.
I tried the E-Zone. I tried a bigger V-Core, like a 98, to see how it felt. I tried a bunch of different ones, and I just ended up kept picking this one up. It feels really good though, and like I said, it's forgiving for the fact that I have to change levels so often.
Yeah. But if you were just a pure player, you weren't teaching,
I probably would still be with the 95.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a 2021 version, right?
Yes.
Got it.
So for me, it's not that the 95 didn't feel good. It's that the 95 didn't suit all of my needs.
Yeah.
And I'm also not a person who's going to have a teaching racket and a playing racket.
That's not your thing?
No.
Okay.
I've never been that, because again, playing, if I'm using, let's say I use a 9-ounce racket just to feed balls, and then I pick up a 12.5-ounce racket to swing. I'm just this is now my arm actually hurts.
Yeah.
So just having a racket that I can do everything with was my main goal. But So let me make sure I got the timeline right. So we top national player, had a ranking, went off to University of Wisconsin,
Mhm.
tech job now,
Yep.
and
Very
high school coach at some point.
No, never high school.
Like I know I've seen you working with high school players.
I work with. Okay, so let's see. During the pandemic, I wanted to make a little bit extra money, so I was teaching outside on top of my tech job, 20 to 25 hours a week. That's a lot of time.
That'll do it.
That's a lot of time. A lot of tanning, a lot of time on the court. And now I cut that down to maybe 5 hours a week.
Mm-hmm.
But all those 5 hours, it's not like me teaching a JV kid how to hit a forehand.
Mm-hmm.
It's UTRs that are 7 or higher that just need coaching in terms of tactics or maybe repetition of like hitting heavy to the kid's backhand.
Yeah.
So I've been lucky enough to where like I could ease off on like the coaching I don't want to do.
Yeah, you don't need to fill in the monetary gap.
Exactly, because that's what my tech job is for. So the kids that you've seen me hit on YouTube are very, very highly ranked high schoolers in the area.
Gotcha.
And luckily, I'm still in good enough shape to be able to not only keep up with them, but sometimes beat them.
Nice.
So that's what I do in my spare time to keep in shape.
That's the goal, and like that's actually one of the reasons why I want to have my own facility, because I love working with a bunch of different levels,
Mm-hmm.
but I also know that there's people that I work with because I have to.
Yep.
Like either this is the only thing that works in their schedule, or they want me and they don't want anybody else, and it's like, but like I guess I have to make that piece of money to like pay this bill, because again, coaching is my passion and I do it happily, and I don't feel like there's anybody I can't work with, but there are definitely people I don't want to work with after having worked with them for a little bit.
Yeah, and that gets difficult, but it's unfortunately you're not only in the sales job, but you're also in the customer service industry as well.
Yes.
So it gets to be difficult. I don't know how you do it. Like teaching, I'm assuming 40 plus hours a week on a regular basis on top of doing your YouTube stuff and on top of being a competitive tennis player whenever you have time. It gets
whenever
difficult.
I have time is definitely the operating statement.
Yeah.
Like when I played Dylan, I was actually probably one of my most frustrating losses. It was because we played tight, but it was all the shots that I missed that were like very game defining shots.
Mm-hmm.
I was just like, I would have made that like 2 months ago when I had played like 6 tournaments.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like I went from teaching to just like getting in a car and driving and playing him. And it was still a very competitive match, but I could just feel like certain little timings or certain little pressures that I usually don't feel. That was where the difference was in that, because he doesn't coach, he only plays, so he only has to worry about hitting his best shot.
Yep. So when in the first set was 6-2 Dill, I think the second set was 7-5. I believe
7-5.
Is the second set when you started to like click and like, oh, this is what it's like to be a competitive tennis player?
Yes.
Okay.
And the thing that kind of sucked, and I think I talked to you about it on the phone at one point, was like, it sucked that the cameras kept overheating, because if those points were there, you could see where certain things changed, and I started making certain shots that I wasn't making before, or I started picking certain shots that I wasn't picking.
Was it mainly shots when you're in offense or defense, you think?
For me, I was connecting with neutral balls better. It wasn't offense or defense.
Okay.
So when we were playing the point, I was not trusting my ability to stay in the point because my timing felt off. And again, V-Core 95.
Yep.
So I wasn't trusting my ability to stay in the point. So I was going for a shot that I wouldn't usually go for, or I was like timidly putting a volley to the open court rather than just sticking it.
So it gives Dill another chance.
Exactly. And there was a couple times where he burned me on a passing shot. There was a couple times where I just there was at least 6 points where I was at the net inside the service box and I missed the ball by like this much. And it was a sitter. It wasn't like he tried to pass me and I had it. He barely has anything on it. I'm just like, oh, let's be done with this point. And then I miss it by this much. And I'm like, I would have won that set. Because when I watched all the points back, I was just like, yeah, that point and that one. All right, now the score would have been 7-5 me, we're done.
Well, that's amazing, because in tennis, unlike basketball or football, and correct me in the comment section on YouTube if this is not the case for people that are more well-versed in that sport, when it comes to tennis, you either win the point or your opponent wins the point.
Mhm.
It's not like, oh, it's either I make this field goal free or no one gets a point. Someone always wins the point.
Yes.
It's never neutral.
Yes.
At the end, someone wins, someone loses.
Yes. And for me, like watching the playback, it was, and this is something I feel like a lot of tennis players, like competitive tennis players, have an ability to do. Like I've talked to, like my wife can't figure out how we do it, but I'm like,
I'm assuming she's not a tennis player.
She wasn't. She has gotten into it, but she was not.
Okay.
So like,
so she's definitely an outsider.
Yes. So like, there's times where I'm like, yeah, I would have had like at 4-4 or 30 all when I missed that inside out 4. She's like, how the hell do you remember all of that? I'm like,
it's emotional trauma.
Yeah, I'm like, because I attached a certain amount of frustration to how I know that should have gone, and now I will not forget it.
Yep.
Like in the match play that Dylan put up, Dylan, you're a smart ass for making this the one replay that you did. So I had game point.
Second set.
Had game point to go up 6-5. Because we were at 5 all. I was serving in the sun. And I was like, if I hold this, he has to serve in the sun and I will be done.
Okay.
Because I knew I would have him. So to go up 6-5, I have a short ball, just like I said before. I'm on the ad side. And the little bastard head fakes me like twice.
I remember that. Yeah.
And then I'm like, and I miss it. And I'm pissed off because I'm like, I should have been done with this game.
You were the far side from the camera, right?
I was on the far side. Exactly. And he not only did he head fake me, but then he instant replay low angle head faked me again.
So there were 2 GoPros.
Yeah, we had the phone up top and then the GoPro was on the bottom because they kept overheating. So we wanted to like be able to at least keep most of the point play.
Oh, that's a lot of scrubbing through content then.
Yes.
2 cameras.
But thanks to that, we actually got the amount of footage that we did get because with the overheating, it was like the phone would be out for like a game and a half and we wouldn't know. But the GoPro would be out for like 3 of the points. So we would be able to get some of the footage from one and some of the footage from the other.
So well, I think the edit, based on that, you wouldn't think of that based on how it was edited. So you guys did a good job with the conditions that you guys had outside.
Yeah, so like that was, like I said, the thing that was frustrating was for the people watching, Will loses the first set 6-2, then Will's down 4-2, now Will's up 5-4. Yeah. And like there's like these time skips where you don't quite know how it got there. Mm-hmm. And for the question that you were asking me about like, well, what did you do different? What would you feel like this wasn't working or this was working? All that stuff is in the footage that's not there.
Okay.
But it was like, for me, it was the neutral game. I was trying to get out of the neutral too fast because I just felt like I was in coach mode subconsciously.
Where'd you guys play?
Local high school. Not
here.
No, I was in Virginia.
Oh, you're Virginia. Okay.
Yeah.
So you traveled.
I traveled, yeah. So I went down to Virginia. Court temperature of like 105.
July or August?
It was August.
Okay.
Pretty sure. Yeah, I believe it was August.
Yeah, that was a while ago. And now it's like, I mean, I would argue this is perfect fall weather. I love this weather. It's fantastic. You could even play tennis outside right now. Speaking of which, should we discuss this kind of setup of, FYI, we're not the only 2 playing each other.
This is true. There will be an extra guest.
Did you want to spoil it? Or no?
No, let him wait for it.
Okay, all right. So you and I are going to play.
Yes.
Indoor hard court, your home turf.
Yes, finally.
And it will be on my channel. I'll actually do it tonight after I do some work. So it'll be good.
I love it. A thing that I do whenever I have a guest on is I try to get some information on.
Oh, sure.
I try to get some information from them leading up to it, what college you played, where you work, and things of that nature. And then before we start a match, I give them a gift.
Oh, you didn't have to.
What? Is this not the Wisconsin color?
It is. This medium? Dude, yes. I'm a little overweight for a medium. By the way.
So the University of Wisconsin Whitewater colors.
It is white, silver, and purple. So yeah. When you said Wisconsin, I thought Madison. I wasn't that good. But thank you very much. So how did you get this printed?
I have a company I work with that's local. I can actually show
local.
You.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because the one I use, or the one I was researching to do, is Spring Tea. I'm sure you've heard of that.
I've heard of them.
But if it's local and you can stay local, why not? This is sick.
I literally walk into there and I'm like, I need this color and this color and this combination. And they go, okay, give us 30 minutes.
Oh, 30 minutes?
Yep. So I walked in and I was like, all right, have the color scheme. And I was like, all I need to do is make sure you have the right shirt size for today. And they were like, yeah, we got it.
Okay. No, that's good.
Yep.
I'll put this on. So any other information you need from me? I think I gave you everything.
One-handed backhand. That's all.
Oh, okay. So growing up, just like any sane person would do, I had a two-hander.
Yeah, so did I.
And I think around 4th grade or 5th grade, I think my two-hander was better than my one-hander because I was a small kid. I still am kind of small, but if you have a smaller male or female, the two-hander typically, in my opinion, is a better drive because they're forced to coil.
Yes.
Right?
And they can bring everything from behind.
Yeah. With a one-hander, you could, or with a forehand, you could just turn the right side of your body, but you're not fully coiling.
Yes.
But for some reason or another, my two-handed backhand just wasn't consistent. Like I could slap it every now and then, especially down the line, but I couldn't connect with it. And then I was just on the internet. I was watching, funny enough, Essential Tennis, their old school stuff of the slow motion videos. I'm sure you've seen that before.
I've spoken to Ian a few times.
Yeah. For the slow motion videos of Federer warming up, Tommy Haas hitting backhands, Richard Gasquet. And I think it was actually Richard Gasquet where I'm like, I want that. Yeah, so I switched from a two-hander to a one-handed backhand. The winter break of my freshman of college, and the issue for me was I was hitting everything a little bit late, but that's kind of natural. So the remedy for that was just kind of getting it way further out in front than a normal two-handed backhand. So my favorite shot, unironically, is the one-handed backhand passer down the line when they're approaching me on my backhand side, which you should do if you see me have a one-handed backhand.
I will have to remember that and try to avoid it. For me, it's the backhand. It's the backhand down the line. But I have a tendency to like clip the net every now and then. But when I hit it and it feels good, I know exactly where it's going to land.
Especially like there's always that feeling of as soon as you make contact with the string on the ball, you know it's going to be a winner. You immediately know just based on instinct, like, oh, this feels good.
Yes.
It's one of the best feelings in the world.
Yeah. I modeled my backhand technique off of Grigor, actually.
I would say Grigor's backhand fundamentals are better than Federer's.
Easily.
As crappy as that sounds.
No.
It's a lot more
true.
modern. It's a lot more modern.
It's more functional.
Yeah.
Like it has more room for variety. Whereas like I feel like Fed's backhand, as amazingly useful as it was, it's not something that you can go and say, hey, go copy that.
No. Tommy Haas had a good one too, but he's retired.
Yeah.
I think he strung his rackets like 70 pounds or something insane like that.
No, thank you.
Richard Gasquet has, I would argue, the most elegant backhand, but I would never teach that.
It's your timing has to be perfect to play that way.
But he's
got the prettiest. Everybody agrees he has the prettiest one-handed backhand on tour. But it would be so. It's like trying to teach Rafa's forehand. It's too many different things involved to make it work.
And we talked about this. I would never teach any junior or even like high-level adult to hit like Rafa or to hit like Federer. I think Djokovic is like the perfect template, or maybe Andy Murray, of like a modern baseline game.
Yes.
Just because it's a lot easier.
Very, very simple, compact, and reliable.
Yeah.
So you got your shirt.
Yep.
We got a court.
Yep.
And we got time.
Good.
You ready?
I'm ready. Let's do this.
Let's do this. Yep.